She yelled, "I love you, you idiot," in a parking lot and drove away before I could say a word back. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Ryan. I'm 28 and I work at a tech startup in downtown Seattle. My apartment is small, just one room really, but it's mine. I go to work, come home, watch shows, and repeat. Nothing special. That was my life until Emma walked into it, or actually, until I finally noticed she'd been there all along. Emma worked for a design agency on the same floor as my company. We shared a building with like 5 different businesses, so the lobby espresso bar was always packed. That's where I first saw her. She was 26, always dressed in colors that somehow matched perfectly, always smiling at people she passed. I noticed her because she was hard not to notice, but I didn't think much of it beyond that. The first time we actually talked, I was waiting for my coffee and she was standing next to me doing the same thing. She turned and said, "You always get the same drink. Americano, right?" I was surprised she'd noticed. I mumbled something like, "Yeah, I guess I do," and she laughed. Not at me, just this friendly laugh that made me feel less awkward. "I'm Emma," she said. "Ryan," I replied. Then my coffee was ready and I left. Simple as that. But after that, she started saying hi every time we crossed paths. A wave here, a smile there, a quick, "How's your day going?" When we ended up at the espresso bar at the same time, I thought she was just friendly, the kind of person who talks to everyone. I didn't think I was special or anything. Then one Tuesday, she showed up next to me holding 2 paper bags from the bakery next door. "Hey Ryan," she said, handing me one. "I got an extra croissant by accident. You want it?" I took it, said thanks, and figured the bakery must have messed up her order. She didn't correct me. She just smiled and said, "Enjoy," before walking away. A few days later, she stopped by my desk. My actual desk, which meant she'd walked into my company space just to talk to me. "How's that project you mentioned going?" she asked. I was confused because I didn't remember mentioning any project to her. But then I realized I had said something about a deadline while we were getting coffee 3 days earlier. She'd remembered. We talked for maybe 5 minutes about work stuff, and then her phone buzzed and she had to go. "See you around," she said. This kept happening. She'd bring an extra muffin or an extra cookie, always saying she'd ordered too much. She'd stop by to ask how my weekend was. She'd laugh when I made comments that weren't even jokes, just regular observations about how the espresso machine was broken again or how someone had used all the printer paper. Looking back, I can see it all so clearly. But at the time, I just thought Emma was a nice person who happened to be friendly with me. My last relationship had ended badly about a year before all this. My ex had told me I was too boring and too safe, and that she needed someone more exciting. After that, I kind of just accepted that maybe I wasn't the kind of guy girls got interested in. So when Emma did all these small things, my brain automatically labeled them as just being polite because the alternative that she might actually like me seemed impossible. One afternoon, Emma came by my desk holding her tablet. "Hey, I'm working on this design concept and I need a second opinion. Do you have a minute?" I said sure, even though I knew nothing about design. She sat down next to me and showed me 3 different logo options for some client. "Which one feels right to you?" she asked. I pointed at the middle one because I liked the colors. She studied my face for a second, then smiled. "Yeah, I was leaning toward that one too." She didn't leave right away. She stayed there, asking me about my day, telling me about some difficult client she was dealing with, just talking. At one point, her knee bumped against mine under the desk and she didn't move it away. I shifted slightly because I didn't want to seem weird, and I saw something flicker across her face. Disappointment, maybe, but it was gone so fast I figured I'd imagined it. Then came the Tuesday that should have opened my eyes. Emma walked up to me at the espresso bar looking a little nervous. "So, some of my friends and I are going to this trivia night thing tomorrow at a bar on 5th Street. Super casual, just for fun. Do you maybe want to come?" She was looking right at me, waiting, and I panicked. Not because I didn't want to go, but because suddenly it felt like maybe this meant something and I didn't know how to handle that. So I said, "Oh, I can't. I have to organize my tax stuff." Tax stuff. In the middle of summer. It was the dumbest excuse I'd ever given anyone. Her smile stayed on her face, but it didn't reach her eyes anymore. Oh, okay. No worries. Maybe another time. She took her coffee and left before I could say anything else. The next day, everything felt different. Emma walked right past me at the espresso bar without stopping.
No smila, nothing.
I told myself maybe she was just busy or in a hurry. But then it happened again the day after that. And the day after that. She stopped coming by my desk. Stopped asking how I was doing. When we did make eye contact across the lobby, she'd give this polite little nod and look away. It was like a switch had flipped and suddenly I was just another stranger in the building. That's when it hit me. That weird, uncomfortable feeling in my stomach that something had shifted. I'd messed something up, but I didn't know what. Or maybe I did know and I just didn't want to admit it. Friday afternoon, my boss called me into her office. Ryan, I'm pairing you with someone from the design agency for our new campaign. You'll be working together for the next few weeks. My stomach dropped when she said the name. Emma. I found Emma in one of the small meeting rooms, already setting up her laptop. When I walked in, she glanced up, and her expression went completely flat. Hey, I said. Hey, she replied, then immediately looked back at her screen. I sat down across from her and the silence felt thick, like trying to breathe underwater. So, the campaign, I started. She cut me off. I already pulled the brief. Here's what I'm thinking for the visual direction. Her voice was professional, cold even. She walked me through her ideas without making eye contact once. Every time I tried to add something, she'd just nod and say noted before moving on. This wasn't the Emma who laughed at my dumb observations or brought me pastries. This was someone who wanted to get through this project as quickly as possible and forget I existed. We worked in painful silence for about 30 minutes. Then she made a comment about our boss, something about how she still uses email signatures from 2015, and I laughed. Actually laughed. Emma looked up, surprised, and for just a second her expression softened. She also prints every single email, I added. Emma's lips twitched. Does she really? I've seen her printer tray. It's terrifying. And just like that, Emma smiled. A real smile. Okay, that's actually ridiculous, she said. The tension in the room dropped just a little bit. We kept working and slowly, gradually, she started acting more like herself. Not completely, but enough that I could breathe again. Over the next week, we met almost every day to work on the campaign. Emma would sit next to me, close enough that I could smell her shampoo, this light floral scent that I started recognizing whenever she was nearby. Sometimes she'd lean over to point at something on my screen, and her hair would brush my shoulder. Sometimes she'd look at me like she wanted to say something, then shake her head and go back to typing. One evening, we were the last ones left on the floor. Emma pulled out a flash drive and held it out to me. Here's the updated files. When I reached for it, our fingers touched. She looked up fast, and I saw it again. That same hopeful look she used to have at the espresso bar. My heart started beating faster and I didn't know what to do with that feeling. So I made a joke. I lose like half of these things. I probably have 10 flash drives somewhere in my apartment just gone forever. She laughed, but it sounded sad. Yeah, she said quietly. I bet you do. The project was going well, but I couldn't stop thinking about how different things felt between us. Like we were both walking on broken glass, trying not to cut ourselves. On Thursday, Emma suggested we grab dinner after work to celebrate finishing the first draft. There's this sushi place 2 blocks away. We could go over the final details there. She was looking at me the same way she had when she invited me to trivia night, and I felt that same panic rise up in my chest. I actually already have plans tonight. I lied. I didn't have plans. I was going to go home and microwave leftover pizza. Emma's face did that thing again where her smile stayed but her eyes went empty. Right? Sure. Another time then. Except I never suggested another time. And she didn't ask again. Friday came and Emma chose a desk on the opposite side of the floor from mine. I watched her laughing with some guy from the consulting firm, the one with the expensive watch who was always talking loud enough for everyone to hear him. My chest felt tight watching them. I didn't understand why. She wasn't mine. I'd never acted like I wanted her to be. So why did it bother me so much? That night, we had another late session to finish some final edits. The office was empty except for us. Emma was typing and I was reviewing layouts and the silence was killing me. Emma, I finally said, can I ask you something? She didn't look up. What? Have I done something wrong? You've been different lately. Her fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. Slowly, she turned to look at me, and her eyes were tired. Not sleepy tired. Emotionally tired. You really don't see anything, do you? She said quietly. See what? I asked. She stared at me for a long moment, and I watched about 5 different emotions cross her face. Then she stood up, grabbed her bag, and headed for the door. Emma, wait. I need to go home, Ryan. I'll send you the finals tomorrow. And she left. Just like that. I sat there alone in that meeting room, my mind racing through every conversation we'd ever had, trying to figure out what I'd missed. The weekend passed like I was stuck in mud. I kept checking my phone, hoping Emma would text me the files she promised. She did. Sunday night at 11:47 p.m. Just a link to a shared folder. No message, no explanation, nothing else. I typed out thanks 3 times and deleted it each time before finally just leaving it alone. Monday felt wrong from the second I walked into the building. Emma was already at her desk when I arrived, which was weird because she usually showed up around 9 and it was barely 8. She had earbuds in and was staring at her computer screen like she was trying to burn a hole through it. I walked past her section twice, hoping she'd look up. She never did. Our boss loved the campaign. She called both of us into her office Tuesday afternoon to tell us the client had approved everything and wanted to move forward. Emma stood on the opposite side of the room from me the entire meeting. When our boss suggested we grab a team lunch to celebrate, Emma said she had a doctor's appointment. She didn't. I saw her eating a salad alone in the building courtyard an hour later. Wednesday, I tried to talk to her. I walked right up to her desk and said, Emma, can we please just talk about what's going on? She finally looked at me, and her eyes were so tired it actually hurt to see. There's nothing to talk about, Ryan. We finished the project. We're done. The way she said done made it clear she wasn't just talking about work. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What could I even say? She went back to her screen, and I walked away feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach. Thursday afternoon, I was in the building lobby getting coffee when I saw Emma sitting at one of those small tables near the windows. The guy from the consulting firm was with her again, leaning back in his chair all confident and relaxed. He said something and Emma laughed, and my hands tightened around my coffee cup so hard I almost crushed it. I didn't even know why I was so angry. She had every right to talk to whoever she wanted. But watching her smile at someone else made me feel sick. I left before she could see me standing there like an idiot. That night, I couldn't focus on anything. I kept thinking about all the little moments I'd brushed off. The extra pastries, the questions about my day, the way she'd remembered tiny details I'd mentioned in passing, the way she'd touched my arm once while laughing at something I'd said. How had I been so blind? Or worse, how had I seen it all and convinced myself it didn't mean anything because I was too scared to believe it could be real? Friday evening, everyone else had already left for the weekend. I was packing up my stuff when I noticed the light still on in one of the small meeting rooms. Emma was in there, shoving her laptop into her bag. My heart started pounding. This might be my last chance to fix whatever I'd broken between us. I walked over and knocked on the doorframe even though the door was open. Emma. She didn't turn around. What do you want, Ryan? Her voice sounded exhausted. Can we please just talk? Not about work. Just talk. She zipped her bag slowly, like she was trying to decide whether to ignore me completely. Then she turned around and her face looked different. Harder. About what exactly? I don't know, I admitted. But something's broken between us and I don't want it to stay like this. She stared at me for what felt like forever. Then she picked up her keys. Fine. Outside. I want to go home. We walked through the building and out into the parking garage. The lights were that harsh yellow-white that makes everything look strange and cold. Emma stopped next to her car, crossing her arms over her chest like she was protecting herself. So talk, she said. I took a breath. I feel like I messed everything up somehow. I didn't mean to. I'm trying to understand what happened. Emma actually laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. It was bitter and hurt and angry all mixed together. You really have no idea, do you? After everything. I'm not pretending, I said. I actually don't understand. She closed her eyes and I watched her jaw tighten. When she opened them again, they were shiny with tears she was trying to hold back. I gave you everything, Ryan. Every single hint I could possibly give without actually saying the words. I brought you food. I stopped by your desk for no reason. I asked you to hang out. I asked you to dinner. And you treated every single thing like it was nothing. Like I was just some random person being polite. My throat felt tight. It wasn't nothing. I just didn't want to assume you meant something you didn't mean. There it is again, she said, her voice breaking. That excuse. You keep saying you didn't want to assume, but really you just didn't want to deal with it. You didn't want to take a risk or feel awkward or actually admit that maybe someone liked you. So you just pretended it wasn't happening. Emma, do you know how that feels? She cut me off. Do you know how hard it is to put yourself out there over and over again, just hoping someone will notice, and they just keep acting like you're invisible? You made me feel stupid, Ryan. You made me feel like I was crazy for even trying. I stepped closer. I never wanted to make you feel that way. I swear I didn't. She wiped at her eyes angrily. But you did. And now you want to talk about it? Now you suddenly care? Why? Because I stopped trying? Because I finally gave up? No, because I didn't know how to finish that sentence. Because I missed her? Because watching her laugh with someone else made me feel like I was being torn apart? Because I was an idiot who didn't realize what he had until it was gone? She was pacing now, back and forth in front of her car. I tried so hard, she said, and her voice was shaking. I tried for months, and you never once looked at me like I was more than just a coworker. Not once. That's not true, I said, but even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. She stopped pacing and looked right at me. What do you want from me, Ryan? Why are we even having this conversation? I opened my mouth to answer, but I didn't know what to say. What did I want? An apology? Forgiveness? For things to go back to how they were? No, I wanted more than that. I wanted all those moments back so I could do them differently. I wanted to see her smile at me the way she used to. I wanted to stop feeling like I'd lost something important before I even knew I had it. But I couldn't figure out how to put any of that into words. And my silence was apparently the wrong answer because Emma's face crumpled. I can't do this, she whispered. Then she said it. The thing that would replay in my head for days. She yelled it, actually yelled it, her voice echoing off the concrete walls of the parking garage. Because I love you, you idiot. The words hit me like a truck. I stood there completely frozen, my brain unable to process what I just heard. Emma's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock at what she'd just said out loud. She looked terrified. Forget it, she said quickly, her voice barely a whisper now. Just forget I said anything. She turned and fumbled with her car door, hands shaking so badly she dropped her keys. She picked them up and got into her car in one quick motion. The engine started and she was backing out before I could move, before I could say anything, before I could do anything except stand there like an idiot watching her taillights disappear down the ramp. I stood alone in that empty parking garage, her words still ringing in my ears. She loved me. Emma loved me. And I'd been too scared and too stupid to see it until she literally screamed it at me. I didn't sleep. At all. I laid in bed staring at my ceiling, hearing Emma's voice over and over. The way it cracked when she yelled. The way she looked at me right before she drove away, like she just exposed her entire heart and was waiting for me to crush it. I grabbed my phone around 3 in the morning and typed out a dozen different messages.
I'm sorry.
Can we talk? Please let me explain. I deleted every single one. What was I supposed to say? That I was too broken from my last relationship to believe anyone could actually want me? That I was so terrified of being wrong about her feelings that I'd rather pretend they didn't exist? That I'd spent weeks lying to myself because the truth was too scary to face? None of that felt like enough. None of that would fix what I'd done to her. But somewhere around 5 in the morning, lying there in the dark, something shifted inside me. The fear that had been controlling me for months suddenly felt different. It didn't feel like protection anymore. Felt like a cage. And Emma had been reaching through the bars this whole time while I'd been too afraid to reach back. I realized I did care about her. I cared about her for weeks, maybe months. I just hadn't let myself admit it because admitting it meant risking something. Risking rejection, risking pain, risking another failed relationship. But I'd been so busy protecting myself that I'd hurt the one person who'd actually tried to get close to me. When my alarm went off at 7, I was already in the shower. My hands were shaking as I got dressed. I had no plan, no script, no idea what I was going to say. I just knew I couldn't let another day pass with Emma thinking I didn't care. I got to the office before almost anyone else. Emma's desk was empty. I sat at mine, watching the elevator, my heart pounding every time the doors opened. 8:30 came and went. 9 o'clock, 9:15. What if she didn't come in? What if she'd decided to work from home just to avoid seeing me? At 9:23, the elevator doors opened and Emma stepped out. She was wearing a gray sweater and jeans, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her eyes were red and puffy like she'd been crying. Like maybe she hadn't slept either. She saw me immediately. I watched her whole body tense up, her hand gripping her bag strapped tighter. She looked away quickly and started walking toward her section of the floor, keeping her head down. I stood up. My legs felt weak, but I walked toward her anyway. Emma. She stopped but didn't turn around. Please don't, she said quietly. I just need to get through today. I know, but I need to talk to you. Just for 1 minute. She finally turned to face me and her expression was exhausted, defensive, already preparing for more disappointment. Ryan, I can't do this right now. I can't. Conference room, I said. Please. 1 minute. She stared at me, and I could see her trying to decide whether it was worth the pain. Then she sighed. Fine. 1 minute. We walked to one of the small glass-walled rooms in silence. Emma went in first and stood near the table with her arms wrapped around herself, putting as much distance between us as the small space would allow. I closed the door and suddenly my carefully planned words disappeared. I didn't get it, I started. My voice sounded rough. Not because I didn't care, because I was scared. Emma's expression didn't change. Scared of what? Of being wrong. Of wanting something that wasn't real. Of letting myself hope and then getting hurt again. I took a shaky breath. My ex told me I was boring, that I wasn't enough, and I guess some part of me believed her. So when you started being nice to me, bringing me coffee, asking about my day, I couldn't let myself believe you actually meant it. I couldn't believe that someone like you would want someone like me. Emma's arms loosened slightly. So you just decided for both of us that it wasn't real. I know how stupid that sounds. But I convinced myself you were just being friendly because that felt safer than admitting I was starting to care about you and risking you not feeling the same way. Her eyes were getting shiny again. You hurt me, she whispered. I know, I said. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I made you feel stupid or invisible or like you were imagining things. You weren't. I saw every single thing you did. I just didn't let myself believe what it meant. She looked down at the floor, blinking fast. What do you want, Ryan? Why are you telling me this now? This was it. The moment I either fixed this or lost her forever. I want you, I said. The words came out quieter than I meant, but at least they came out. I want to try this. With you. If you still want that. Emma looked up sharply. You can't just say that because I yelled at you in a parking garage. I'm not. I'm saying it because it's true. Because I've been miserable all week. Because watching you laugh with that guy made me want to punch something. Because I can't stop thinking about you and I'm tired of being too scared to admit it. Tears started sliding down her cheeks. I don't want perfect, Ryan. I never did. I just wanted you to see me. To actually look at me and notice I was there. I see you now, I said. I promise I see you now. We stood there in silence for what felt like forever. Then, slowly, Emma took one small step toward me. Then another. She stopped right in front of me, close enough that I could see the exact shade of brown her eyes were, close enough to smell her floral shampoo. Her hand reached out, trembling slightly, and took mine. Her fingers were warm. I squeezed gently and she squeezed back. "If we do this," she said quietly, "you have to actually try. You can't run away the second it gets scary." "I won't," I promised. "I'm done running." She nodded slowly. Then she leaned forward and rested her forehead against my shoulder. I wrapped my arms around her carefully, like she might disappear if I held too tight. We stood like that for a long time, just holding each other in that small conference room with its scratched table and flickering light. It wasn't dramatic or movie perfect. It was quiet and simple and real, and it was exactly what we needed. When we finally pulled apart, Emma wiped her eyes and laughed a little. "We should probably get back to work before people start talking." "Let them talk," I said. She smiled, actually smiled, and it felt like the sun coming out after weeks of rain. We walked back to our desks together, and I didn't care who saw. We took things slow after that. Lunch dates turned into coffee walks, turned into long conversations that stretched until midnight. We talked about everything, the scared parts and the messy parts and all the moments I'd missed. 3 months later, people at work definitely knew we were together. Emma joked that everyone had figured it out before I did, which was probably true. We weren't perfect. We still had moments where I got scared or she got frustrated with me. But we talked through them instead of running away. One Saturday evening, we were sitting on my tiny apartment balcony in the 2 chairs that barely fit. Emma had her head on my shoulder, laughing at some dumb story I told about my day. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt this calm certainty settle in my chest. All those hints I'd missed before hadn't disappeared. They just led me here to this moment, finally ready to understand them. "You know you're still kind of clueless sometimes," Emma said, squeezing my hand. "Yeah," I agreed, "but at least now I'm paying attention." She smiled and kissed my cheek. And that's how our story went. Not with some big dramatic ending, but with 2 people choosing each other clearly and completely, one day at a time. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be seen by someone who's been trying to see you all along.